Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, everyone. Inshallah, we'll be live in about 3 to 4 minutes. Imam Muammar will be joining us today and leading today's class, inshallah. As usual, if you have any questions, feel free to leave them on the YouTube chat or on the Zoom Q&A. Jazakallah khair and have a wonderful day.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, everyone. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, inshallah, reward you all for being here and for your commitment and dedication. Bismillah wa salatu wa salam ala rasulillah, nabina Muhammad, wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallim tasliman kathira. Inshallah ta'ala, today I want to start with sharing some of the answers that I received pertaining to the question of using toothpaste. I think this is a very important subject that we want to discuss, since this pertains to you very closely, and also a lot of people, including maybe your family members and what have you, do go through this and they will ask. So inshallah ta'ala, I want to see, inshallah, let me first get the answers that I got from you. Bismillah. I have them on a Google Doc, so I'm just going to share it, inshallah. Okay, inshallah, let me try to share it now. See if I can. Kashif, can you allow me to share? Because it says host disabled participant. Yeah, I think because I logged in as a participant. Let me check if I
I just
have.
made you the host, Imam Omar. Try now.
Okay, shukran. Yes. Okay, excellent. Shukran, Kashif. Yes. And Bismillah. Okay, so I'm sharing with you the document now. And I have received the following questions from Sister Sina first, regard the answers, that is, regarding the question about whether or not toothpaste is allowed while fasting. It's more on, I guess, on a previous, with Sister Sina on previous research or previous knowledge that she has heard or got from different workshops, maybe, or different teachers, that the, and or maybe from myself, because I do remember answering these questions in the past. I remember hearing in the past that it is allowed, but it's better to avoid it because it may be absorbed through the skin of the mouth into the body, and the ingredients in toothpaste will end up energizing the person. It's better to use toothpaste after finishing sahur and before fajr, and using siwak during the day instead. So the conclusion of the answer, that we cannot say it's haram, but we can say it's disliked, yani makruh. Now we go a little bit more into a depth or detailed answer from Brother Khalil. So Brother Khalil states that the Hanafi and Maliki, they view and that brushing the teeth during fasting is permissible and an established practice of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. However, using toothpaste is disliked, but not forbidden while fasting. If the toothpaste goes down the throat, though, it will invalidate the fast. For some reason, my dear students, my computer is running out of battery, and I did not, for some reason, I did not get the charger. So if I lose you, just hold on. I will inshallah log in with another computer I have here in the room. So I'll just keep going. So if I lose you, just take like a 5-minute break, inshallah ta'ala. So the Hanafi and Maliki, they or at least according to Rav Khalil. So we want to just make sure that, of course, in the classical books, there is no mention of our toothpaste because it did not exist at that time. But Brother Khalil is mainly talking about brushing the teeth, the concept of brushing the teeth in general, not necessarily with toothpaste. But I just don't want to get confused that if you look up the classical books, you will never see anything about, our current toothpaste that we deal with, but definitely about the concept of brushing teeth. So he goes to say, Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu stated that the fast is invalid by what enters the internal stomach cavity, meaning that anything goes from the mouth down the throat to the stomach, that even if it's something uh, not described or defined to be food, still just because of that process of swallowing something to the stomach, it breaks the fast. Shafi'i, anything that eliminates unpleasant smell or the odor from the mouth and removes uh, the plaque or the tartar from the teeth will suffice. طيب. Therefore, a modern toothpaste or toothbrush, let's talk about toothpaste, more of a toothbrush. Toothpaste does suffice. Regarding what is the most virtuous, the miswak has a special status because Prophet Muhammad ﷺ used it. One will be rewarded for using it as it is following the sunnah. Hanbali using toothpaste while fasting is at the very least makruh. So if you can notice, if we're going along up to now, we're still on one pattern. So everybody's finding out that we can't come to a point where we say it's haram, but it is definitely something that we can say it's disliked and makruh because of some of the dangerous consequences that it might cause us to invalidate our fast. And then, of course, we're letting out or we're replacing it with something that is virtuous, as it's stating here, which is the siwak. Hanbali using toothpaste while fasting is at the very least makruh. Again, Brother Khalil, we want to be very specified or very specific that when you say Hanbali using toothpaste, you will not find in the Hanbali school anything talking about toothpaste because it did not exist at that time. So as student of knowledge, you guys have to be very specific when you get an answer and you summarize it to either quote it, make it a quote, or that you yourself would remark that toothpaste didn't exist there. It's the concept of brushing in general and what have you. So because otherwise people will misunderstand that the Hanbali school is actually talking about our current toothpaste, the one that we use with sugar and flavors and what have you. طيب. While a number of contemporary Hanbali scholars consider it haram because of the strong flavor, therefore the miswak should be used instead. Then also, Brother Khalil goes to say, I found one source that said the act of using miswak to clean one's teeth after the time of Dhuhr prayer during a fast is disliked for both Shafi'i and Hanbali. I believe this is based on the hadith, when you fast, brush your teeth in the morning, but do not brush your teeth in the afternoon. طبعا, Brother Khalil says that the source I found, the scholars have weakened this hadith and, classified this hadith to be very, very weak. So we cannot really base any rulings on it, and we cannot use it for evidence, which means that we cannot use it to say that it is disliked to use the miswak afterwards and what have you. But the Shafi'i school and the Hanbali school, actually Shafi'i specifically, does bring an evidence for why they believe that afternoon, after Dhuhr time, you should not even use the miswak. So I'll leave this as a homework for today for you. So if I lose you shortly, I want you to look up the evidence, just a hadith, that based on what hadith did the Shafi'i school actually made it disliked and made it makruh for people to use siwak, which is in general, it's a sunnah that Prophet ﷺ used during his fast. And they have no problem with it, but they specified it, that's before Dhuhr. It's fine, it's a sunnah. But after Dhuhr, no. So we want to have the evidence, and the evidence is not this hadith, because this hadith is a weak hadith and we cannot base any rulings on it. So I want you just to find out based on what hadith did they rule that. And it can be analogical, so it doesn't have to be specific hadith about after dhuhr or whatever. It's just an analogy that they base on it. طيب. Finally, it says that Prophet Muhammad ﷺ says, were it not for the hardship that I would, oh, that's just a hadith to talk about the virtues of miswak. طيب. The another answer from Sister Afaf bin Nooni, the answer is that it is permitted, but it is disliked. Preferable not to use toothpaste because the toothpaste is too strong and may go down into the throat. Instead of brushing during the day or after the Fajr prayer, one should brush teeth after suhoor meal or before Fajr comes in, and brushing at night during the day to keep your mouth fresh by using a miswak, and if brushing teeth only with water. So again, if you notice, up to now, the three of you are really coming along to be on the same page. You are all saying the same thing, which indicates that, alhamdulillah, that most likely, inshallah ta'ala, your answer is correct. Sister Khadija is now the only thing that Sister Afaf added is that if you must brush, you can brush with water. So you don't use the toothpaste, just if you wanna actually feel a little bit refreshed and what have you. That's something that also is not 100% agreed upon, because some scholars do dislike the act as well. And that answer that you will find out about using miswak after dhuhr is disliked will also be the same answer of why you should not keep brushing your teeth even without toothpaste, even just brushing your teeth with water throughout the day. So that's the answer would be the same. So that answer is going to be sufficient for you to answer many of the questions that people bring your way about refreshing, about, the mouth issue. Sister Khadija found out that first opinion, which I believe is the Hanafi opinion, is that use of toothpaste while fasting is makruh because it increases the chances of swallowing the toothpaste. So if just a remark, if you guys are, again, you just want to be very specific, because when you say Hanafi or Hanbali, everybody refers back to the classical schools. Now, if you found out some opinions from the followers of the madhab, like shuyukh, current shuyukh or contemporary fuqaha or scholars that carry the madhab of Hanafi or madhab of Maliki, and they're stating that based on their classical understanding, you should also, as a student of knowledge, specify that this is an opinion of a scholar that follows the Hanafi school and what have you, or from the Hanafi school. But usually the student of knowledge have the culture and custom that when you say Hanafi, when you say Shafi'i, when you say Hanbali, when you say Maliki, you're referencing that back to the scholars, to the four scholars. So you should be very specific, and you cannot just give a general, that the Hanafi school have talked about toothpaste, because when we read toothpaste, we are basing that on the current toothpaste that we have now. But of course, Imam Abu Hanifa did not have this back then, so he never even ruled anything about it. He might rule something that is similar to it. This is what we call analogy. So this is where you have to be very specific as a student of knowledge. So it, again, because it increases the chances of swallowing the toothpaste, which will result in the fast breaking. Because of that, and there is that possibility, it is ruled to be makruh, because it could very well invalidate your fast. Use miswak or just the toothbrush with water. So Sister Khadija again said the same thing that Sister Afaf mentioned, and that would give you the same homework, inshallah ta'ala, that you want to look up to give the same answer. The second opinion is that yes, you can use it but be very careful that none of the foam is swallowed. The opinion is taken from the fact that the toothbrush and the toothpaste are comparable to using miswak, and that is allowed. So that's the analogy or qiyas that we do. You know, they bring the siwak concept of using that wooden tool or wooden stick that we use siwak to clean our teeth, and they based on that allowance and that permissibility that Prophet Muhammad SAW allowed, they base on it the toothbrush. See, if it stops at the toothbrush, I can see the analogy, I can definitely see the comparison. But to compare a toothbrush or a toothpaste with siwak, there is a difference. They say it in fiqh, al-qiyasu ma'al-fariq. You are making an analogy between two things that are not really comparable. They're not really the same. It's like, you know, when you compare an apple to an orange, you're not comparing an apple to an apple. They're really two different concepts, according to those who have differed. You know, miswak doesn't have strong flavor, miswak doesn't have sugar, miswak doesn't have, or the flavors of sugary flavors or the ingredients that might, and a lot of people feel it, energize somebody when you actually brush your teeth. All that makes it a big difference, makes it different than comparing this product to the use of siwak. But again, the finding of Sister Khadija is absolutely correct, because this is something that exists in the fiqh books nowadays, and they do compare it. And she did state that I was unable to find a lot of sources, which is true. But even if you tried really, really, really deep, you will not find anything, honestly, more different than what you, mashallah, all of you stated today. Because all of you, mashallah, just nailed it on the source. Because, you know, some of you, of course, went into details, very, mashallah ta'ala, like Brother Khalil, like very deep research. I really do commend you for it. And mashallah, it just reflects that a lot of reading was put in order to summarize this short answer, or I would say fair answer. But at the end, as an answer, all of you brought the answer. So all of you said it's not haram. The least we can say about it, it's makruh. If it's misused and it's not used well, and actually the flavor and all that thing comes down the throat, then it invalidates the fast, which means that the person has to make up that day and will lose the virtuous or the virtue of that day during the month of Ramadan, the blessed month of Ramadan. All of you had the answers with, of course, some detailed. I would love in the future when I give you a homework is for you. So if I have a quick homework on the screen, like during our session, your short answers are sufficient, very sufficient. Like the answer of Sister Sina, Sister Afaf, yes. But if it's a homework and you're taking this for a whole week, that would not be sufficient. I would love to see an answer that is very similar to the answer of Brother Khalil. Then second in line would be the answer of Sister Khadija. But Brother Khalil's answer would be an ideal example of a homework that you take home, and you have a whole week to research for. So that's just for future reference. But as an accuracy, all of you got the answer correct, mashallah ta'ala. All of you. طيب, excellent. Now, inshallah ta'ala, I want also to give you another quick homework besides the issue of siwak, using siwak, or the dislike, or being using siwak being disliked, makruh, after dhuhr, according to the Shafi'i and some of the opinion of the Hanbali. But let's specifically talk, because that's what's really obvious in the fiqh, classical fiqh books, about the Shafi'i stand on that. Making it makruh to use siwak after dhuhr, that's one quick homework. You can give me a short answer, which is, the answer has to be short. All I need is on which hadith they based that answer, which hadith they used to base that or to extract that answer. Second homework is that one of the students, while researching for the toothpaste, did read something that we have mentioned in the class that did not match of what I told you, and wanted a little bit of more clarification during today's session. So I was asked before, a few sessions back, about the issue of making up fast on somebody who have passed away. And my answer was, if someone passes away, then this is not a debt. So you don't have to make up that fast, because it's a worship act, and you do not make up worship acts on behalf of anybody. Like if you miss your salah, your siyam, whatever, no one can come and make it up on your behalf. If you're too weak, then you can break your fast and make it up later on. If you cannot make it up at all, then you just pay your kafara and expiation. But there is nothing, a concept of somebody makes up a worship act on behalf of another. But we were talking specifically about people who are deceased, basically passed away. And the student, while was researching and doing, the student did find another opinion that says that the heirs or the inheritors, the one that benefits from the property, from what have you, on behalf of that person, needs to make up the missed days. So your quick, not homework, your quick, I would say quiz along with the miswak one, is to research it really quick, 5 minutes, look up, and to get me an answer that would actually bring the two answers together. So the answer I gave you would still stand, and the answer that was researched and found that, yeah, you still need to make up the missed days on the person who have passed away. And this is how, a student of knowledge, that we bring the two answers, and we prove that there is no contradiction in any of the answers. So your work has to look up how can we bring the two answers to be correct? And how can we bring the two answers to be acceptable and they're not contradicting each other? Or is it? Or is it really contradicting each other? Or is it just merely different opinions? But on that, it should not, because if it's just different opinions, I would have mentioned that to you, that there are other opinions that actually demands or mandates that people who are still alive would make up these days on behalf of their deceased or their loved one that have passed away, or they had passed away. طيب, excellent, inshallah. So those, inshallah ta'ala, when you take the break, you are going to research. I'm not sure how long the computer will hold, but as long as you're with me, we're going to continue our class. And then when I lose you, you can take that 5 to whatever, 7-8 minute break time to look it up. That would be a great example or experiment for you to look up something really quick and not to be confused about it. And if you are confused about it, this is how, inshallah, I will train you, that when you look up something really quick, how with alhamdulillah, the enough foundation that you've been grasping throughout our sessions, that you are able, inshallah, to bring the answers together and to understand what you read online in a different way, and it's not as confusing as it was before you committed to these fiqh sessions. Now, to continue, inshallah ta'ala, so now we want to continue of some of the acts. Let me see if I can share with you now. Bismillah. Okay, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. I want to share with you the book that we are mainly using. That's the which is Kitab al-Fiqh al-Islami wa Adillatu. Basically, that's the fiqh, the Islamic fiqh in general, and that's in very detailed of what the four schools talked about, and of course other schools as well, but mainly the four schools talked. So most of the material that I get for you and we translated is from this book, but of course when I design the questions, I go way out of this book because this book does not go into the details of what the like frequent question and answers that we have. So we stopped at, which is today we're going to start المبحث السادس الأعذار المبيحة للفطر, which is the excuses that or allowance or exceptions of the rule that allow a fasting person to break the fast. Okay, just got a comment really quick. I thought somebody went, but it's a question, so inshallah we'll answer it later. Okay, inshallah. So now what are the things? Here we are going to talk about the very first famous thing, and as inshallah I am telling you can take some of the notes. We're really slow on doing the slides because my assistant Sister Radwa is not really is very busy going through some a lot of work at her work and her personal commitments, so she's not really being able to keep up with the translation, but inshallah it's all khair. Shortly she will be able to catch up with all the slides and she will post them for you. But inshallah ta'ala, today we are going more of an opportunity for you to catch up with the note taking. So you take the notes and you explore more, and then you will find inshallah ta'ala the slides ready for you later. So here we are talking about the very first most important thing of a permissibility that allows someone to break a fast during Ramadan is a safar, which is traveling. That's what a lot of people are familiar with. So, and that of course comes from the ayah in Surah Al-Baqarah 185, as you can see. فَمَنْ كَانَ مِنْكُمْ مَرِيضًا أَوْ عَلَى سَفَرٍ فَعِدَّةٌ مِّنْ أَيَّامٍ أُخَرَ. So anyone that is sick, anyone that is on travel, then let them break the fast during Ramadan, but make it up. فَعِدَّةٌ مِّنْ أَيَّامٍ أُخَرَ. But let them make it up later on. طيب. Bismillah. Now, what kind of travel, this is how, when I usually do the questions for you, I have to read all this and extract for you the summary and put it in a question and answer format. It becomes more easy for you, inshallah. So, it's a lot of work, but alhamdulillah, I enjoy it and I'm glad that you're benefiting from it. But you have to read all this in order to extract just the summary of it. But of course, here I'm just giving you the summary. We're not reading all this. So, as-safar al-mubih lil-fitr. Now, is it any travel that actually, so a question would come, what kind of travel, or is any travel is sufficient enough to allow somebody to break the fast? The answer would come, no. The scholars have agreed that it is السفر الطويل. طيب, how do you define what allows a person to break the fast? Very easy. If that travel allows you to shorten your prayer, then you're good to break your fast. It means that it's long enough, it's far enough for you to combine to shorten the prayers. If that is the case, then you are able to break your fast. So it's a long travel. It's not any travel, meaning that if I am in Raleigh and I want to go to Chapel Hill, for example, right? It's a distance. It might take half an hour, drive, but is it a travel? It's not a travel for us because we still consider it to be a triangle area. And we don't have the culture and the custom to say, oh, I'm traveling to Chapel Hill today. Even though it's more than half an hour, it could be even 45 minutes drive. And the 45 minutes, like if you add to it 15 minutes, and you end up being very close on the borders of Greensboro, where you actually consider Greensboro to be a travel. That's why in general in fiqh, it's not really specifically very precisely about the distance and how many miles, but the miles we're just giving as an example to define a long travel, or if it's not a long travel, uh, 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 um, what your culture, what your custom defines a travel. So Chapel Hill, your custom and your culture does not define it to be a travel. Whereas if you add another half an hour of drive to it, it might ends up taking you to Greensboro, where your custom and your culture defines that to be a travel, because you do say to people around you or to your family members today, oh, tomorrow I'm going to be out of town. So now you're defining that you're going to be on travel. You're going out of your town. You are traveling out of the premises of your town, and you're going to Greensboro. So culture, your custom, you're mentally fit, you're physically fit, psychologically fit to even think that I'm going to be out of town. So that is what defines or what allows somebody to travel. Now, the scholars here also says that you are permitted, and some of them, not all of them, to, if you want to actually do that, since you know that you're going to be on travel, is that the intention has to be taken from the morning. Let's say we are in Ramadan today, tomorrow, Tuesday, I have the plan to travel. Then at night, I'm taking the intention already to travel. So I'm not taking the intention to fast. Remember about the intention every night. This is where it stops. I'm not taking any intention to tomorrow too, because I'm going to be on travel. So some of the scholars are saying that you have to have that intention and you have to start without fasting the day. Whereas some other scholars say, out of respect to the month of Ramadan, or respect to the worship act, when you commit with an intention to something and to fast, so if you're going to be on travel tomorrow, then you don't fast the day from the beginning. You don't fast tomorrow and wait until you get very exhausted and then you break the fast. Of course, if it's very, I used the wrong, I'm sorry. You don't fast half of the day and you get a little bit tired where it's inconvenient, and then you want to decide to break the fast. Not exhausted, but tired. And you say, you know what, I'm on travel anyway, I can just break the fast. Or let alone if you are in the airport and you see a coffee shop or like some type of food that you crave, and you end up like saying, okay, now actually I'm on travel, I can break my fast. No, of course not, because that should not be the reason how you take this worship act so lightly. But again, inshallah ta'ala, that's just at least for you to know that it is something very important for us to know, that if someone actually commits to travel, then should they do it from the beginning, the answer would be yes, and that's what really is the most cautious answer. But to actually decide to fast, if something legitimate happens during the day and somebody get really tired, of course, by consensus, you can break the fast because you're on travel. Let alone even if you are in your locality and you get really tired and very exhausted, you can even break the fast. So I guess this is taken for granted or by default. But we're talking about inconveniency here. So as we just mentioned, um, and now, inshallah ta'ala, uh, just that's in general would cover all the opinions. So in here it says اشترط الشافعية شرطا ثالثا وهو ألا يكون الشخص مديما للسفر. The Shafi'is have also got a little bit deeper into really scratching the surface and going deeper and says, you know, these are general rules, but that general or these general rules don't apply on someone who has the habit to drive or to walk or to travel with any kind of means for long distances, and that's their habit. So examples, like current examples of taxi drivers, truck drivers, Uber drivers, people who just drive long distances like every day. They go, some people go to Greenville every day and come back. Some people go to Greensboro every day and come back. Um, some people go to Charlotte every day and come back. Um, it's difficult, very difficult, but are they considered to be? Again, the Shafi have also added that since it's their habit, and again, it's not defined a travel for them anymore, they don't, that's their habit. They do this every day. They go to Winston-Salem, to Charlotte, to Greensboro every day. And they don't say to their family, they don't say to their community that we're traveling tomorrow. I'm going out of town tomorrow. No, this is just the norm. They drive to these distances and come back. They added that this should not be, there is no mashaqqa for them. So there is really no hardship because it's been done this has been done every day in their life. So they don't consider that to be sufficient enough to make them break their fast. Of course, unless that was their habit, but something else comes to disrupt their daily routine. Now, is this agreed upon? No, of course not. This is just an addition, an opinion. That's why when I put the questions for you, I would specify that this is like the majority of the scholars. But the Shafi'i did add that if it's a habit, if it's a custom, then the person is not allowed to travel. I'm sorry, the person is not allowed to break their fast. So they should continue fasting. Now, there are things that I usually skip for you. I'm going to give you example of that. That's a general rule. So if you read at the top here, وهناك شرطان آخران عند الجمهور غير الحنفية أن يكون السفر مباحا. طيب, here usually I do skip those for you, right? Because this is something that at least we know with the culture that we live that this is something that we don't get asked. So, but the fuqaha, they have to put all these details. They say, okay, another condition that would not allow someone to break the fast during Ramadan if someone is traveling for a haram purpose. Someone is traveling to a distance where they are going to commit a haram. So that would not give them permissibility. That's not a legit travel. That's not an Islamic travel. So it would not give them any Islamic excuse or permissibility to break their fast. Usually, as I said, I do skip those for you. And so I don't have an answer. I don't have a question for you. What if the travel was a haram travel or to reach to a haram destination? Is that I would not, because there will be endless amount of questions that I would put on your slides. But just Just this was an example for you where a lot of these fine details I skip for you. Now, here it says al-khulasa, summary, conclusion. أن المالكية يبيحون الفطرة بسبب السفر بأربعة شروط. The Malikis allows a person to break his or her fast when four conditions, if any of the conditions, يعني if all these conditions are met, and that is a safar, that is when someone shortens their prayer. So that's defined, or it is defined to be a travel. أن يكون سفر مباحا, that it is a halal safar, it's a halal travel. It starts before Fajr. The travel itself, it starts before Fajr. So the travel itself starts before Fajr. So the person takes intention not to fast because the travel started. And yubayyit al-fitr, here it means that they need to take the intention that I'm not fasting. Okay, this is just the conclusion of what all the scholars, but they did not agree all on those four conditions. But the four conditions basically covers all the opinions, all the opinions. Now here it says, what if, actually a question I would bring you, what if a traveler actually starts with being with a fast, with intention to fast? Can they break their fast during the day without ithm, without like being sinful? So here it says no ithm, no sin on that person. That's in accordance to the Shafi'is and to the Hanbalis. Because again, they would bring an evidence, and usually I would add that evidence if it really, if we base so many rulings on that evidence. If it's just an evidence for each one, I usually skip it to make it short for you on the slides. However, here, of course, they based it on the opening of Mecca when Prophet ﷺ traveled for the opening of Mecca, Fathu Mecca, and how they were fasting. And because it was a very hot day and the Sahaba started, really getting weaker and weaker. So Prophet ﷺ in front of everyone broke his fast during the month of Ramadan and asked the Sahaba to break their fast. So they took it from that story and from that ruling. Then it says, here it says that the fitr, which is breaking the fast, is not allowed because the intention was not there before. And actually it's a sinful act according to the Hanafis and the Maliki. And not only that, they have to make up that day. And then it says that they would allow the qada, or they have to make it up. Here it says that qada, which is making up, and also kaffara is added in the Maliki school, that if they actually end up fasting the day and in the middle of the day they decided, you know what, I want to break the fast. And of course, their proof for that is because you started a worship act, exactly like you start a umrah, you start a hajj, you start your salah. You have to have a legitimate reason why you break it. You can't start a salah and then you say, you know what, actually I just remembered that I needed to do something before. So you quit your salah, go do that thing, and then come back to pray the salah later on. You can't do that. Same thing with the hajj, same thing with the umrah, same thing with any worship act, that they see it exactly the same. Now, it says here, now a question would come to you: is it more preferable to stay, or like to keep the fast and to stay the course and to keep the fast and to stay being, you know, like to meaning that to continue being to continue your fast, don't break it during a travel. Is it more preferable to do that, or is it like some people say, well, you must break the fast because you're gonna be on travel? So again, here, according to the Hanafis and Malikis and Shafi'i, it is better to fast because you are fasting days of Ramadan. I do adopt this opinion, honestly. I don't see the other days where you make up that these days, even if you have a permissibility to break the fast. I see that you fasting during the month of Ramadan, the blessed month of Ramadan, is way more preferable than you making up those days, especially if you don't have to break the fast. Some people have the misconception that just because you're allowed to break the fast during a travel that you must break the fast. Because you're on travel, you must break the fast. And there is really no proof for that.
It looks like Imam Muammar's computer died. Inshallah, he'll be rejoining in a few minutes. Jazakallah khair to everyone for your patience.
Inshallah, you have 5 minutes to finish the questions that I had for you. So, inshallah ta'ala, you can continue your homework or like the quiz that I Okay, inshallah. Bismillah wa salatu wa salamu ala Rasulillah, Nabina Muhammad, wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallim tasliman kathira, inshallah. If you can just, any of you, just send me a quick that you can hear me okay and see me okay. So I can just make sure that we are connected, inshallah. Okay, alhamdulillah. So you do, okay. Okay, Ya Rab, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Okay, now just to get the questions that we had. From Sister Khadija, now we have the Shafi'i opinion said it's not obligatory for the wali to fast, but just feed. Am I reading the right thing? Oh, this is the answer for the to make up the fast on behalf of someone who have passed away and um, and had missed days to fast. طيب, Shafi'i opinion said it's not obligatory for the wali to fast, but just feed the needy on their behalf. Maliki, no obligation for feeding or keeping fasts. Hanafi wali should fast, and if he can't, then feed the needy. The disagreement stems from the conflict of analogy. It is established from the tradition of Hazrat Ummuna Aisha that Prophet Muhammad ﷺ said, if a person dies when he owed a duty to fast, his wali is to fast on his behalf. Related by Muslim, it is also established from him through the tradition of Ibn Abbas. A man came up to the Prophet and said his mother had died owing the fast for a month. Should I then fast on her behalf? Prophet ﷺ said, had there been a debt against her, would you have paid on her behalf? Meaning that money debt. You know, if she had like a money debt, would you have paid on her behalf? The Sahabi replied, yes. So the Prophet Muhammad said, the debt of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has prior claim for payment. Meaning that the debt of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is more important, and it's very important as well to make up. Those who oppose this say, one second. Those who oppose this say because no one prays for another, then no one is to fast for another. Okay, that's the answer for the makeup of the fast. Inshallah, that's one of the answers. For the for a siwak salam, for the dislike of using miswak after dhuhr because of the hadith. What hadith? We have to specify. That's the hadith I am looking for. So you need to specify which hadith, inshallah ta'ala, for Sister Afaf. Khadija, again, I think that's the answer for the one. Sister Yasmin, yes, we can. Referencing on, yes, we can, on which question? On the miswak one, or I'm not sure. Okay. Oh yes, we can. That when I asked you if you can hear me. Okay. Alhamdulillah. Jazakallah khair. On making up the fast, hadith of Ummuna Aisha radiallahu anha, according to which the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, whoever dies owing any obligatory fast, his next of kin may make them up on his behalf. Narrated by Imam Bukhari. So that's very good. Now you have a very strong dalil, but you would say now the very obvious question that would come, If it's so obvious for us, how would it be not obvious for the scholars themselves to base their their opinions and their rulings on this hadith? It could be many answers. Sometimes I told you maybe the hadith did not exist at that time, or it could be that they interpreted this hadith a little bit different. So we will see, inshallah ta'ala. Because some of the scholars may say, that we will, inshallah, about the hadith of how they actually explain it. Mm. Okay, let me see if we have more question, more answers. Okay, if you have, let's see if I have, I think. I don't see any other answers. Let me see when the question and answer. In the question and answer, it says, from Sister Sina, if a person dies before having the opportunity to make up fasts for which he had a valid reason for not doing, then his inheritors should make up the fast for him. This is like a debt that he owes, and so his inheritors should fulfill it for him. But if he died before having the opportunity to make up the excused fast, then those fasts do not need to be made up by his relatives. Also, if the missed fasts were due to heedlessness, then these fasts also do not need to be made up by the relative. But then there is a correction. I meant in the second part of my answer that if the person died while having had the opportunity to make up the fast, but he did not do it, then those fasts should not be made up by the relatives. Let's read the first section and see what's the difference between the first. So the first one says, if a person dies before having the opportunity to make up fasts for which he had a valid reason for not doing, then his inheritors should make up the fast for him. This is like a debt that he owes, and so his inheritors should fulfill it for him. So if a person dies, so someone missed, let's say, a week of Ramadan or 5 days. So if that person dies, okay, so Ramadan is done. If a person dies before having the opportunity to make up fasts for which he had a valid reason for not doing, then his inheritors should make up the fast for him. I think, I'm not sure, Sister Sina, if you can comment on this. If you have really flipped the answer, so did you really mean if a person missed legitimate days of Ramadan, had to make up 5 days later on, Ramadan finished, the person didn't have opportunity to make up the days because Ramadan just finished, they were just taking just a quick break, or they did not, or if it was a female that she entered into her monthly cycle, so she's not able to make up those missed days and what have you. And so she was not really delaying, or he was not really delaying, and that person dies. So they had a legitimate reason why they did not make up the reason. According to your answer, that person, his inheritors need to make up the days for him. Whereas the person that had the opportunity, in the bottom it says the person had the opportunities, but if he died before having the opportunity to make up the excused fast or missed days, then those fasts do not need to be made up by his relative. I think I need a little bit of a clearance because I see the answer is you are really, really close to the right answer. At least the answer that I had in mind to share with you. But your answer is really mixed up. It's correct, but you just need to restate them. To restate them meaning that just two categories. A person had 5 days missed days of Ramadan, had a reason, a Shari'i reason, an Islamic reason not to make up yet. They had the intention, but were not able to make it up yet, and they died. Do they need to make up the inheritors, his relatives? Do they need to make up those days on their behalf? And the other scenario is the person actually had many opportunities to make up those days and they never did. They just never did. They kept postponing, they kept delaying, they kept putting it off for other days, today, tomorrow, maybe in the winter time, maybe toward the mid of winter time, maybe toward the end, maybe before next Ramadan, and they died before they actually did. So that's the second category. So first category and second category, and just let me know. So I got the gist of your answer. Just let me know if the inheritors need to make it up or not. So let me see the other answers until Sister Sina clarifies that. If the women, Sister Sina keeps, I think that's another answer. If the women kept delaying doing the missed fast, and the next Ramadan came and she still didn't do it, even though she could have done it, then those fasts cannot be made up by the relatives. Okay. Let me see the other answers so I can put them all together for you. So I also have, can you give us a hint on the hadith about miswak being makruh after dhuhr? Not miswak being makruh in general. According to the Shafi'i, the use of miswak. Remember, you guys, you need to be very specific when you write these things. The use of miswak after dhuhr during the day of Ramadan. But there is no hadith that takes about the miswak being makruh. I keep finding the famous hadith about using the siwak before every salah. No, those are general hadith about the use of miswak. There are hadith, but there was a ruling from the Shafi'i school that says everybody agrees that using the miswak is a sunnah, even during Ramadan. Everybody, including the Shafi'is. But then the Shafi'is say, but you know what? Use it before Dhuhr. If you want to use siwak during Ramadan, use it before Dhuhr. After Dhuhr, you should not use it. So I was just asking, like on what hadith or what ruling or what analogy did they base that answer or ruling on? It doesn't have to be something very specific. It's something general. Let's see if somebody got it, inshallah. For the fasting makeup days for a sick person that has a terminal illness, they don't have to make up, but if it is a different reason that can be made up, like because of travel or menses, yes, their family should make it up. Okay, so let's see if I have more, inshallah. Okay, so we have, of course, Alhamdulillah, yani, you did a great job of bringing. So Sister Khadija did more on the classical research. So let's take it one by one. The Sister Khadija's answer, the Shafi'i opinion said it's not obligatory for the wali or the inheritor to fast, but just feed the needy, yani to give kafara, or just feed the needy on their behalf. Yani the same example that we talked about, 5 days, missed 5 days. You don't need to make it up on behalf of the deceased person, but just give kafara on their behalf for those 5 days. She found out that the Maliki says no obligation for feeding or keeping the fast. The Maliki says there is that, like the answer I gave you before, that there is no need to make up. Now, the Hanafi, the wali, should fast, and if he cannot, then meaning that they should make it up, and if they can't make it up, they just need to feed the, yani pay the kafara. And the disagreement stems from the conflict of analogy. It is established from the tradition, tayyib, a person dies odd. So the analogy of that Prophet ﷺ was really truly asked if we should make up the days on behalf of our loved one who have passed away, and he said yes, it's like the debt. If they had a money debt, you would you would have fasted on their behalf or not? And the answer, yes. So Prophet ﷺ said that the right of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is as important and is very more, and it is more important, but it's as important. So we have to follow that. Now, the answer about, so let's take it one by one. Let's talk about the siwak one. So the siwak one, just as one last, because some of you are sending more. What if you do not know the number of days that person missed? What if you don't know the number of days the person missed? Again, if we don't know, that's a lack of knowledge, and of course we cannot make up any of the days if we don't know that they had even missed days. If we did know that they have missed days, but we don't know exactly how many days, then we estimate. We give an estimation, and we always do more than the estimation. So if we thought, I think they had 5 days or maybe up to a week where they really missed those days, so we go up to the max, which is the 1 week. So now let's take the first question about the siwak. Siwak in general is a sunnah to use it throughout the year. Even during Ramadan, because we have some hadith that Prophet ﷺ still did siwak, and he talked about it, and he used siwak during his fast, so he kept the tradition. So the question is, if that's the fact, why would the Shafi'i school say, okay, but then quit it and stop it right after Salatul Dhuhr? Khalas, don't use it. Why would they do that if this is a virtuous act and Prophet ﷺ did it and what have you? The answer is that they based it on the general hadith, not a specific, but general hadith about the smell of the fasting person. That Prophet ﷺ in another hadith said that, you know, the smell of the fasting person that seems to be, or it really smells to others to be an awful smell or a very disliked smell. To Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in the sight of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it is better than the smell of a musk, or like one of those really, really fancy perfumes, or utur, or bakhur that we use in order to really use it as a scent to really make the room and the area really, really smells good. So the hadith in general, Prophet ﷺ is saying that khalufu fam as-sa'im, the disliked smell that comes out of the mouth of a fasting person in the sight of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is better than the smell of a musk. even though we humans, we dislike it, we don't like it. Because of that hadith, Imam al-Shafi'i disliked any act that would reduce that smell. So Imam Shafi'i did not want any side acts that would actually reduce that so-called bad smell to people, because it's a great smell in the sight of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So Imam Shafi'i wanted to balance, use the miswak, use it. طيب, why did he say after dhuhr? Because he just estimated, or like that's his own judgment, that because we have suhoor and the first like a few hours of fast, the smell is not as bad. The smell is not, because everybody knows, even in the old days, that the smell actually comes from the stomach. It's not really from the mouth, but of course the mouth is the tool that allows that odor and that smell goes out from your stomach. That's how people smell it. So they actually know and knew that the smell comes from the stomach. And because people have suhoor, because you had food, so your stomach is not empty, so the smell is not bad in the early hours of the fasting day. However, right after Salatul Dhuhr, then the stomach is empty because the food is digested and what have you. And that smell is very strong now because it's coming out of an empty stomach now. So that's why he specified after Dhuhr. For no reason, no hadith or anything, just the general knowledge of having the stomach to be empty. So that's the hadith that Imam al-Shafi'i ruled and said, do not use miswak, let alone do not use, if he would have to be asked about toothpaste, he would have been very, very firm on us and say, no, don't use anything that would actually take out that smell. Or reduce it even, because everybody knows it's coming from the stomach, so it's just reducing the stomach, reducing the smell. It's not really eliminating the smell. So that's the hadith, inshallah ta'ala, that but of course he still said it's disliked, so he didn't say anything. So my answer for the toothpaste is very, very, very small and very similar and close to your answers. So my answer is that, and the one that I had for you, I will inshallah ta'ala, that one I have, and we'll have it on the slides inshallah ta'ala soon. But yes, it is basically disliked, makruh, and we would definitely avoid it because of the risk of swallowing that strong flavor that the toothpaste leave in the mouth. And it's not to be compared to a miswak, where the miswak does not have that strong flavor in it. It does have a flavor, but it's not a strong flavor at all, and it's a natural flavor. It's like a wood flavor. It's not something that is added or ingredients that would actually give or to energize a person and give them energy and kind of refreshing and what have you. And also because of the current disagreement among the experts themselves, is this artificial flavor? Is it really sugar? Everybody says that it's not sugar. Yes, but it's really a supplement for sugar, because you can feel the sweetness of the paste and the freshness that it brings to the person when they do brush and what have you. So again, the answer is correct, your answer. We can't come to an extent where we say, using the toothpaste is haram and it breaks the fast. That's way too much for us to say that. But we can comfortably say that it's a very disliked act, and we should not do it because of many reasons. One, and the most important thing, is because it runs the risk of invalidating our siyam and fasting if we end up not being careful about the remaining of that flavor in our mouth, and we end up swallowing it. And second reason is because of the Imam al-Shafi'i reason. When people keep brushing in the morning, in the late morning, in the afternoon, in the Asr time because they just want to kill that smell. That's why they keep brushing and what have you with a toothpaste. So the answer is it's really disliked, and we should not really run any risk to invalidate our siyam. The siwak one we answered. Imam Shafi'i based it on the smell, a hadith after dhuhr, because the smell is very strong and we should not eliminate it. The makeup of the fast, again, to be honest with you, the answers are not very clear. So I might leave this as a homework for you, that you detail it more. So in order to give you clues on how you get the answers, is this matter disagreed upon? The answer is yes. So you're not going to have a definite answer, right? Now, when I answered it for you last time, I was answering on somebody that asked a specific question that said somebody died and they had some missed days. So we said the answer is, and I do admit that I had to, at that time, I had to go a little bit into details of, we need to define those missed days. What I mean by that, the only one, so Sister Khadija did well in the research of the opinions, but did not come to touch anything about defining what missed days, on what basis. So the missed days are legitimate, but why they were not made up. So when we say the Shafi'i, the Hanbali said that missed days you can skip them and what have you, are they all talking about same definition of missed day to make up the makeup? Okay, I might be confusing you more. Let's go back. It's not one answer. It's disagreed upon. And the clue of your research would be on something very similar to what Sister Sina brought your way. But I think she still did not put I think she were not really clear. So meaning that you read her answers were about to go to check why those missed days were not made up. If it's a legitimate reason why those days were not made up, then what is the ruling on that? If there was no legitimate reason to make up those days and the person died, what's the ruling on that? So I really narrow it down for you. So now this is how your answer, very close to the answer of Sister Sina, but it was not, it was a little bit confusing. So we want to really defining again, define why the reason those missed days were not made up, and what's the ruling? Do we need to make it up or not on their behalf? And if they had no legitimate reason not to make up those missed days and they kept delaying it and they died on that status, what's the ruling on that? Whether it's make up of the days or whether it's the kafara or what have. That would give us more clearance, and I would, inshallah, make you a little bit busy for this week, inshallah, because the time is for dhuhr is coming now. So the answer needs a little bit of time, and I did not want to really rush it, because usually if I rush it, I make you more confused. So let's leave this as a homework, inshallah ta'ala, and we will start with it next week. Jazakumullah khair, barakallah feekum, may Allah reward you all. Take care. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.